Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, here we go. It is Wednesday night, Gridiron Grinder time nonetheless. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 160 of Gridiron Grinder. And like always, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium. After that, we're going to cover the news from this past week, which was a short week for us. And then we're going to jump into our week four power rankings and game picks. And last but not least, we'll close things off with our question of the week. And so, yeah, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Got a little bit something going on here in my throat, so just bear with me and probably a lot of coughing and trying to clear it out, but we'll make it work, man.
Yeah, I've had ever since I had COVID, I've had a little bit of frog in my throat constantly, which is annoying.
Yeah, just like that last little bit just lingering.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotcha. Well, hey, man, why don't you take that ball and run with it? Do some name that stadium for us.
All right. So as you can see, I'm traveling around to different stadiums that host NFL games, and first person to guess, get it right, gets an extra special shout out. We'll give you a bookmark. You play it for all your friends. I didn't see any after last week, and again, I fucked up the stadium because I should have gone somewhere else, but said, fuck it. And I was in Tampa Bay because I actually thought that game was going to be a good game, and man, was I wrong.
Well, a little bit of weather, a little bit of Phillies defense asserting some dominance, and
Hmm.
whatever else.
Yeah, so we'll see if I'm right this week, but
Okay, so you're looking for some takers.
yeah, hopefully we get a taker. Heck, even if you don't know where the fuck I am, just throw a stadium out there. You have what, a 1 in 16 chance of being correct.
Yeah, yeah, we'll throw a dog a bone, man. Just take a shot. Okay, so James, I'm gonna just kind of skim the NFL.com website here as we're gonna do our recap of the past week. With it being a short week, I've shamefully not done all my homework, and so you can, chip in wherever you want. Um, but it is a short week, so probably not a ton to cover anyhow. So just looking through it, looks like we got Jimmy Garoppolo hanging out in a concussion protocol. Um, they're saying his status for week four is going to be uncertain at this point. We'll see how that shakes out, but we know sometimes that stuff can linger. We just saw that with Anthony Richardson and the concussion thing, man. Hey, like Tua went through it all year last year. It can be nasty, man. Some of these guys just
Hmm.
have a hard time bouncing back from it.
Exactly, and it depends on how bad the concussion. Like his hit, I thought it was a sprained AC joint. That's what, or no, that was Carr.
Oh yeah, Derek Carr. Yep.
Derek Carr had a sprained AC joint. I got them confused.
Yeah, and so what are they saying about him? Is he going to be back, or is it going to be Jameis Winston?
The quote from Derek Carr is it's stated today. I'm going to do everything I can to be out there. If I physically just can't play, then I can't play. But if I'm out there, that means there's no fear of re-injury. There's no fear of being able to help the team. Blah blah blah. Basically, if he's healthy, he'll play, or if he's able to, he'll play. But um, we'll see.
Gotcha.
No,
Okay.
I didn't think when after Carr left, like, one of the big things that I was reading like all week was, oh, the um, Saints lost because Derek Carr, or because Carr got injured, but I didn't think Jameis played too bad after Carr left. I mean, he was 10 for 16, 101 yards, but no TDs, no interceptions. So I mean,
Okay.
that's not terrible stats. It's just
Yeah, it
Jordan
just
Love
seems
in the
like that
fourth quarter.
offense isn't hammering it home, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, would they end up with 16 points or something? It's just like,
17, but
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
just not enough, man. The
Hmm.
Saints,
And
we
like
got spoiled with the Drew Brees era, but it's like now, man, they're just like, I don't know, it just seems underwhelming on offense.
right, but but the thing of it is they had a last second field goal that was ended up wide, wide, I think, a little.
Okay.
Um, no good. Yeah, wide right. I was gonna say wide right, and I wanted to look it up, but yeah, with like a minute 10 left in the game, the groupie, whoever the fuck that is, their rookie kicker missed a field goal wide right, and if he would have made that, I mean, possibly they would have won the game. Like we don't know what would happen in the last minute if
Yeah, Jordan Love and company.
yeah. So we'll see.
I gotcha. Well, yeah, and speaking of going back to the concussion thing, so Anthony Richardson, it looks like he's been practicing this week, which is a good sign for him playing this weekend. Um, but we've got some negative news coming out of Chargers camp. Mike Williams, it looks like he tore his Achilles in the game last week,
Hmm.
and he's going to be out for the season. Big time bummer there.
Yeah.
And then this is one where I haven't heard much about it. I saw like a very brief thing on NFL Network, something about Chandler Jones being hospitalized against his will. So I don't know if that's a drug thing or if that was just like, whatever happened there. I was just wondering if maybe you saw something about that.
No, I hadn't. I just was uh
You're skimming it right now, aren't you?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and while you're doing that, oh, Travis Kelsey jerseys jumped by 400% because of Taylor Swift going to the game. Oh, I don't know, dude. I don't know. It's just people go crazy about that stuff, and I guess they're dating. Good for them.
So apparently he had posted something on Instagram or X where he said he didn't want to play for the team anymore.
Okay.
What? No, that's oh wait, no, wait, claim two officials, blah 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 blah. He then posted it. So, place on non-football injury list. Yeah, like it's very sparse the details of it, but basically, um, he apparently posted photos of journal entries about patients' rights. He was described the experience. He was transported to a Vegas hospital by 5 to 7 fire officials who told him he had been put on a court hold by the police department.
Hmm.
He said the police said people were concerned about me because of my post online, and he was injected with an undisclosed substance in the ambulance, despite not giving consent.
Oh man, they like tranquilized him, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to blah blah blah. Okay, so that's the patient's right. You have the right to refuse treatment. Blah blah blah. What's this one? So whoever put me here had is wondering if the Raiders GM put had the police put him. Trying to figure out why he's not allowed in the building.
Okay.
His first night he slept on the floor and wasn't given a bed.
At the hospital.
Yeah. Uh, That's what I was injected with. I don't know what. They said that it was that it was a court hold, and the Las Vegas Police Department put me on it. I haven't done anything wrong. The police said people were concerned about me because of my posts online. I answered my front door, and a group of 5 to 7 were there to put me in an ambulance where I was later injected. I told them not to, took away his cell phone.
He must have been going down some kind of a dark path if that happened, man.
Yeah, and he was transported to like a mental institution where they tried to force him to take meds and injections.
Okay.
Man, this is some weird shit. I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, all I heard on NFL Network was just they were concerned about his mental health and just that he was like admitted to the hospital, um, involuntarily or something. And I'd not heard or seen anything else about it. But
Yeah,
Chandler Jones, obviously, big name guy, one of the best edge rushers out there, and it seems like he's had some issues in recent years. Whether it's injury related, being able to stay on the field, or I did see on the Pat McCaffrey show. Um, they were saying that he had something like this a few years ago, but it was drug related. And
yeah,
so I don't know, you just hope that that's not the case now, and whatever it is, they can get him squared away and get him back out there.
yeah. Hopefully, like it's just some bizarre shit.
All right, well, in other news, man, just kind of looking at it, it looks like the Jets have decided to go out and sign Trevor Simeon. I don't know. Anybody's probably better than Zach Wilson. So, but you got to start somewhere. You come in as the backup, and Zach Wilson has another 4 game interception, whatever, and you can, 4 interception game, and you can flip it. But aside from that, man, just kind of skimming the news here. I don't know. There's not like a ton that we need to dig into. Um, I saw Sean Payton made some comment that nobody's going to get fired, even though they had a freaking 70 burger put on them in Denver. Whatever, it is what it is. It's just puff. It's not actual news. They got their asses beat.
Yeah, I'm not seeing like possibly Cooper Kupp is going to return this week
Oh,
for
nice.
the
I didn't hear that.
Rams. No, I'm sorry, next week. My fault. Because he
Oh,
has
yeah,
to be
yeah,
out for
because he
four
was on
games.
pup, so he'd be out this week. But
Yeah.
yeah, next week. Okay, sweet.
Yeah, and
Or IR. He was put on IR,
he's
not
an
pup. That's
IR.
right. Yeah. All right.
That's
So,
about it for the news.
well, do you want to do some surprise games of the week there,
hmm
James?
hmm We'll
All right,
start
man.
with
Yeah.
we'll start with the Broncos at the fucking Dolphins. What a fucking beatdown.
Yeah.
So it was like the first time a team had scored 70 points in an NFL game since like 1966. It's tied for the third most points ever scored in the game. Tied for the second most points ever scored in a regular season game, which ironically the most points ever scored in an NFL game was in the fucking playoffs
Okay. Yeah, that's
at
pretty wild.
73. Um, and then 72 was the regular season record, and they chose not to kick a field goal. I don't remember where it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
late.
Yeah, I saw something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they took a knee instead. It was they took a knee with like 33 seconds left on the clock. They could have kicked a field goal and tied the record, but I mean, who cares about the fucking record? You won the game. Let's just get out of here. Everybody and their brother scored for the Dolphins. Like seriously, Tua threw 4 touch. I mean, they scored 10
Yeah,
touchdowns.
freaking Mostert had 4, man.
Yeah, Mostert had 3 rush. Did he have 4? Yeah, he had 1 receiving. I was like 3 rushing. Yeah. So and Mike White threw a touchdown. Tua threw 4. They had 5 rushing touchdowns. It's just just a beatdown. And that's
Yeah.
only on like they had 71 plays total in the game,
Okay.
and 10 of them were touchdowns.
Jeez. Yeah. Just spanked him hard.
Yeah, just beat the shit out of them. And it was like over early. It was like, I mean, at like half it was like 35-13.
Okay.
So it was just ridiculous beatdown. Like I was surprised that it was that bad. Like I knew Miami was better than Denver, and Denver has a lot of issues, but fucking 70 points, it's
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous.
embarrassing.
And I think I had told you it's like the average loss for Denver. Yeah, they lost by 50, which increased it. Was what was it? It's like Denver is minus 53. So like
Okay.
going into the game, um, they were relatively respectable. Is that correct? Yeah, minus 53. Denver's point difference is minus 53. So they've
They were
basically,
-3 going into that.
yeah, they were minus 3 going into the game. And then Chicago is minus 59. We'll get to these two teams later. But that's like both those teams are on average losing by 3 scores,
Yeah.
18
Yeah.
or 20.
Yeah, I mean, the 70-point game, that's almost like a college game, like a freaking SEC team playing like a MAC team and just like rolling them all day with the
Well, no,
backups in
that's
too.
that's like that's like Alabama versus Mercer, who they always played like right before like the Auburn game. They always play Mercer, and they always beat the shit out of them.
Okay. Yeah, it's almost like a bye week.
Yeah. So I mean that game was a surprise. We touched on it a little bit, the comeback by Green Bay over New Orleans. Like Jordan Love played like shit the entire game except for the fourth quarter, which I mean, good for him. He played a good fourth quarter.
Well, what else you got? I mean, Arizona over Dallas, that was huge.
Arizona over Dallas. That was a surprise. That one was because I don't have Sunday Ticket anymore. That one was the late window game for me, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I
No,
missed a
no,
lot of the action on Sunday, man. I was at
Bears at
flag football.
the Bears at the Chiefs was the late window game, and they switched to Dallas at Arizona because that game the Bears Chief game was 34-0 at half.
Okay.
So they switched to Dallas Arizona game. That game was just it's hard to say, a dominant performance by Arizona over Dallas, and you could definitely tell that Dallas was missing what's his face,
Diggs.
Diggs, because it was like they freaking Josh Dobbs of all people lit them up. Like
Yeah,
I think
expose
Dobbs,
that defense that just embarrassed the Giants a couple weeks ago.
yeah, and it's well, Josh Dobbs. Well, it was a little bit of rushing, but like Dobbs had 189 yards passing and 55 yards rushing. I'm sorry,
Okay.
178 and 55 yards rushing. But it's like they had 222 yards rushing total in the game for Arizona, and like it's not like Dallas had problems moving the ball. They had similar yardage to they actually had more yards than Arizona. They just couldn't fucking score in the red zone.
Yeah, I
It
heard
was,
Dak had some issues in the red zone.
yeah, throwing interceptions left. I mean, Dak's Dak. Like I don't think Dak is a good quarterback. I've You and I talk about that all the time. Dak is an average quarterback at best, but for Josh Dobbs to beat Dallas,
Yeah.
that there's something wrong there.
All right. Well, what about Indy over Baltimore, man? What'd you think of that one?
That one I didn't see much of that game. Like looking at Baltimore's
I mean, a bit of a surprise. Gardner coming in,
right, but
shocking them.
it was a trap game.
Yeah.
So Baltimore played Cincinnati last week or 2 weeks ago. Then they played Indy, and then they're at Cleveland next week. So it was
Yeah.
the
So you think they
classic
were
trap
looking
game.
past it? Yeah.
Yeah, they were looking past it. They have their backup quarterback. just kind of disrespecting the mustache, which is no longer just a mustache. He has a beard now. If you
Okay.
didn't see, it's
I,
not just the mustache.
I didn't see it, unfortunately, but I'll check it
So
out.
so that one wasn't as surprising. Just like I had talked about it last week when we were doing our picks. Houston, how bad Houston beat Jacksonville maybe was a little bit of a surprise, but
Yeah.
Houston winning that game wasn't a surprise because, like we talked about it, Trevor Lawrence doesn't play well against Houston. It was like
Yeah.
he's now like 1-5 in his career or something against Houston. So, but
Yeah,
I mean that.
sometimes those divisional games are tricky, you know? And that's where I think the other ones were more of a surprise, but that one was kind of like um, you knew Houston was desperate to get a win. You know, D'Amico Ryan's, in that club, man, they're wanting it bad. And then yeah, like I mean, whatever it is, it's like a blind spot for Trevor Lawrence, like you're saying.
Mhm.
But yeah, the divisional games sometimes you never know, and so um, I had it on my list as surprises, but it was at the bottom where it was kind of like I didn't expect it, but it also wasn't like that big of a surprise.
Yeah, and like I think you want to go to the 0-3 matchup of like the Vikings Chargers. I think it was a surprise based on the situation that happened towards the end of the game with Staley went for it on 4th and 1. Basically all game the Chargers hadn't been rushing the ball. Total rushing yards in the entire game. The Chargers had 30 rushing yards.
Oh, that's weak.
And so you're at the end of the game with like 2 minutes left in the game. Um, you go for it on 4th and 1 from your own 24-yard line.
Yeah, that's bold.
Luckily, there was a luckily the Vikings didn't know what the fuck they were doing and got all discombobulated, and Cousins threw an interception in the end zone. Basically, it was going to Hawkinson. So like after the 4th and 5, they had a play, and it was a great play that they had got the first down, and then that like got the first down with like 40 seconds left in the game, and it took them 28 seconds to figure out what play to run in the first place.
Yeah,
And
Staley's
then
got to go, man.
oh no, this is Minnesota that had the issue.
Oh, all
So
right.
they didn't
Yeah,
they didn't they didn't have they didn't have a plan for
yeah, and it's
after
supposed to be a
Hawkinson's.
high-powered offense. Like, come on, man. You should
Mhm.
know. Get out there and sling it.
Yeah, so like Minnesota
But
and
Staley still needs to go.
Staley needs to go. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but fucking the Vikings and that coaching staff fucking bailed his ass out.
Okay.
And I mean that I don't know why you're all right. You have like 2 minutes left in the game, and neither team is real. Minnesota is hit and miss when they're moving the ball. Like their last drive, they turned it over on downs, and they turned it over on downs at on like the 2 fucking yard line.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're moving the ball, but it's like they're you play. They don't have any timeouts, and you kick the ball deep, or you kick the ball, have it in their own side of the field, and make them drive the entire field uh to get there in what was it? What did I say? It was like a minute 51 ish left in the game. Make them drive the field, no timeouts. See if they can do it. Instead, turn it over on downs on your 24-yard line, and like luckily they had issues, and like they went because I think it was like because yeah they went it was 3rd and 11, they got it. It was 4th and 5, they got it, and then on first down they didn't know what the fuck to do, and they were on the 6-yard line, and they didn't know what fucking play to run, so and took 30 seconds off the clock and then threw an interception.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wasted opportunity.
Yeah, but there's something wrong with Staley, like
Yeah.
seriously. But that also goes into what I was talking about going into last week, where the Chargers had won now 4 straight games by one score, and Minnesota has now lost 4 straight games by one score.
Yeah. Yeah, it's flipping for Minnesota, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other surprise games?
Let me take a look. I don't think so. I think that was like kind of it. Like,
Yeah, that was all I had, man.
yeah, that was it.
All
That
right.
was really all of it.
That's cool. Well, yeah, let's shift gears here. Let's go to our week 4 game picks. I'm sorry, our week 4 power rankings. Getting ahead of myself here. And yeah, I'm just pulling up my sheet here, James. Whenever you're ready, man, go ahead and give me your 1 through 5, dude.
All right. In my top five, there was a big fucking move.
Okay.
Um, and I will explain that. But so San Francisco stayed at 1. I moved Miami all the way up to number 2. Miami with Tua has the best offense in the league. Absolute best offense in the league. They are they just put up 70 against Denver. So scoring wise, they are plus 59. They've scored 130 points this season. So take out the 70 burger they put up against Denver, and that's still 30 points a game prior to that.
Yep.
Yeah, their defense has allowed some points, but I'm not as worried about that because it's an incredibly high-powered offense. And the points they put up, like they put up 34 to Vegas and then 17 to New England prior to that. And then against Denver, they just pulled all the starters. So,
Yep. Yep.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
they're rolling.
to his yardage, he had 466 yards against the Chargers, 249 passing yards against New England, 309. And he played. I think he was pulled in the early third quarter.
Hmm.
209 against Denver, and then you had rushing wise. I mean, they're just ridiculous on their like total overall stats. Like their
Yeah.
team stats for rushing total, they have almost 600 yards rushing. They're like averaging almost 200 yards a fucking game in rushing yards.
Yeah,
They
that's
have
intense.
565. They're averaging let's call it 370 passing yards per game. Let me see if 36 decent math. 363.7 passing yards a game, 188.3 rushing yards a game, which is obscene. And then defensively, like passing yards, they're allowing 231 passing yards a game and 130. So they're what's that? 360 versus 550. So they're doubling up their opponents in yardage.
Yeah.
So this week I had to give them the respect and put them in the top 5. Then 3 and 4 were Philadelphia. They stayed the same. And then 5 Detroit. I moved Detroit up to 5. They won against Atlanta. It was an impressive performance. I had Atlanta at number. Wait, that's not right. That's not right. Hold on, I got to double check.
Sure.
I had Atlanta at number 5.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you dropped them 3, it looks like, instead of 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we'll get to them later. So I had Atlanta at 5. Atlanta lost to Detroit. I had Detroit ranked right behind them, so Detroit popped up into the top 5.
Nice. Nice. All right. Yeah. So on my side of the board here, my 1 through 3 stayed the same. I've got Philly, Kansas City, and Buffalo. Just looking at Philly, you could see that Jalen Hurts is starting to get that connection back with A.J. Brown. And then obviously the defense is gaining steam like crazy. I saw something like Jalen Carter, the rookie defensive tackle, has the most pressures in the league right now through 3 games. Making good on that early draft pick, man. And then with
Hmm.
Kansas City, you know, they got a win, and it's like it was like basically as close to a guaranteed win as you can get. They went against Chicago, and really that game was more about like the Taylor Swift thing with Kelsey and whatever else. And I don't really
Yeah, who
care about
gives a
any of
fuck?
that garbage. It just was whatever. And then with Buffalo, I like they had a really solid road win. I definitely feel more comfortable with them in my top three. I think the last couple weeks they were there just because of how highly rated they were in my model, and then they
Hmm.
were, kind of winning. They were 1-1 going into this week, but I feel better seeing them assert some dominance now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then at four, I've got San Francisco. I bumped them up one spot. You know, the one thing that just kind of had me wondering with them is that you saw Dallas just totally annihilate the Giants a couple weeks ago. I would have thought that the 49ers defense might have done something similar, and they didn't. And maybe that's just because the Giants are finally showing some signs of life or whatever. I don't know. But either way, it gave San Francisco a little bump, but nothing crazy. And then at five, I've got the Dolphins. Yeah, you talked about it. You get a TD, you get a TD. Everybody and their mom scoring touchdowns for the Dolphins, and um, that was a pretty awesome game. I wish I would have gotten to watch it, but just catching the highlights and reading about it after was pretty cool too. So back to you at six, man.
All right. At six, I have Kansas City. They moved up one spot, but they're still sitting behind Detroit because of the fact Detroit beat them. I do really fully think Kansas City is a better team than Detroit. I just need to have more proof of it.
Sure.
With Detroit winning, I'm not gonna, and Detroit still beat Kansas City, and it's just like a couple weeks ago. Seven, I have Dallas. I dropped Dallas down 5 spots. I talked about it last week. I probably overrated them before hearing about the Diggs injury based on what I was seeing. They were being fairly dominant, and then they went and lost to the team that I had ranked
Yeah,
32.
I know, man. I know.
Then I have Atlanta. And they lost to Detroit, and I dropped them 3 spots. I dropped them 3 spots kind of because it's just kind of how it fell that it ended up being 3 spots. It could have been more, but um, it wasn't because then I was moving teams ahead, and
Yeah.
I'm not certain about Buffalo, who I have at 9. Yeah, they looked good this past week. The first 2 weeks, which team is it? I want to see more consistency from them. And then at 10, I have the Chargers. Buffalo and the Chargers moved up one spot. Chargers basically because of a win, and the teams that were right in here lost and lost to pretty lowly ranked teams I had. So the Chargers, even though I don't think they're deserving of the number 10 spot, they end up in the number 10 spot simply because of what happened around on the board around them during this week.
I got you. Okay. All right. So my 6 through 10 had a nice little shake up this past week. I've got Cleveland at six. I moved them up 3 spots. That seemed to me like it was a get right kind of game for them after losing to Pittsburgh last week and having Chubb go down. I thought it was nice to see them bounce back and play good. Seven, Baltimore. I dropped them down three. And it's just one of those things when you think that this team's rolling, they do something stupid like this. And like you're talking about, probably looking through the Colts because they had their eye on Cleveland next, and it
Hmm.
just bit them in the ass, man. It's just stupid stuff. At eight, I've got Dallas. I dropped them down two. Same kind of thing. They took their eye off the ball, and they got bit in the ass. Nine, and I could have went further with Dallas. And I think, let's see, you got them at seven now. I got them at eight, so we're kind of like converging with Dallas right now. But yeah, I mean, their defense had been phenomenal up until this past week. Their offense has been streaky. Um, they got some work to do. And then at nine, I've got Cincinnati. I moved them up one spot. I know Burrow made comments about, oh, Jamar Chase getting, 12 catches or whatever, 140 yards, and that's great, man. But they won that game because of their defense. It's very obvious that Burrow's injury is holding them back. And I don't know that they could have done anything else about it. Like you put a backup in at quarterback and it could be a disaster. And so it was nice that they got the win. Hopefully now another week will go by, he'll get a little bit healthier because we know how good they can be when he's healthy.
Hmm.
And then at 10, I've got Pittsburgh. I moved them up 3 spots. Maybe a little bit of a strong bump for these guys, but they're getting the wins and, still a little bit streaky on offense. But I think they got a little bit of a benefit of the board and, just sort of like some factors help kind of escalate them, to where I'm at here. So back to you at 11, man.
All right, so at 11, I have Seattle. I moved them up 3 spots. I think I disrespected Seattle coming into the season. I thought last year was kind of a a fluke based on what I saw, and then like I'm finally getting them probably to, and it's actually 4 spots because they were 15. So my math sucks, but I think finally getting them to like right the range there, like 11 through 13 is probably where they'll float for a while.
Sure.
12, I have New Orleans. I dropped them 4 spots. I really like the New Orleans team. I'm concerned about the Jameis Winston Saints versus the Derek Carr Saints and what that will look like. But and they lost to Green Bay. Yeah, we talked that game to death. 13, I have Cleveland. I moved them up 2 spots. They thoroughly dominated who they put Tennessee. Like, listen to these stats. Net passing yards, 68. Total rushing yards, 26.
Yeah, with Derrick Henry.
So, team stats wise, total yards in the game, 94. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, their defense is looking great, man.
Yeah, that defense is looking freaking phenomenal, and I think 13 is a little low for them. It's just I have to be able to get the board right.
Yeah, it
14,
takes
I
time.
have Baltimore. I dropped them 4 spots. I think with Baltimore, I kind of was too high on them coming into the season, and after losing to Indy, even though I said it was a trap game or it felt like a trap game, the it's still like
Yeah, you're making them
they
feel some pain.
yeah. And then at 15, I have Pittsburgh. I moved Pittsburgh up 7 spots this week. Um, I think I think off of like the first week of the year, I kind of disrespected Pittsburgh. Total, they're actually not doing that bad. Their their offense total yards on offense 890. They had, yeah, that's 300 per game. Yeah, they've allowed 1200 total yards against them. Mostly rushing yards. Their passing yards is good per game. It's their rushing yards that is kind of concerning. But the team, I think they're better than where I had them,
Okay,
and that's why they moved up to 15 to kind of reflect that.
gotcha. Okay. All right, so yeah, I've got the Chargers at 11. I moved them up 4 spots. It's a little bit about them winning, and it's a little bit about the board working in their favor here. 12, I've got the Seahawks. And so basically with like Atlanta, New Orleans, and Washington all losing, I took that as an opportunity to just kind of like flip chunks of teams on my board, and that included Seattle going up to 12, as well as Detroit going up to 13. Then at 14, I've got the Patriots. I moved them up 3. Not sure they totally deserve it, having beaten the Jets, and we know what's going on with the Jets. But they're getting the wins, and it's the same thing. There's just chunks of teams winning and chunks of teams losing, and so, making kind of wholesale changes here. And then at 15, I've got the Jets, and so I dropped them down 7, one of my bigger moves. And this is just part of that post-Roger slide. I know that you have been much more aggressive in tanking them down the board, and I respect that, but I'm also trying to be cautious because we know how good their defense is, and if they could just run the ball effectively and not turn it over, they could stay in some games. But right now, they've got to figure out how to stabilize some things and let that kind of play out, which they've not figured out yet. So back to you at 16, man.
All right, so at 16, I have Vegas. Vegas has a Josh McDaniels problem.
Yeah.
They have a Josh McDaniels problem. I dropped them 3 spots. They kind of got lucky a little bit with what was going on the board around here, so they only ended up being dropped 3 spots. New England also was moved up 4 spots solely based on to 17, solely based on what happened at the board around them. They won, so they got the luck of the draw and moving up. But New England's offense is atrocious. New England's offense is absolutely atrocious. Let me get these stats back up because this is like last year I talked about how Seattle's quarterback room was where hope goes to die.
Oh, yeah.
New England's offense is where hope goes to die. Total offense, they're averaging, no, it's not too bad, 350 per game, but it's 100 rushing yards, 235 passing yards per game, and the only reason why they are 1-2 is because they played the Jets.
Yeah.
But they're just I don't want to be the dead horse. 18, I have Tennessee. I dropped them 2 spots. I dropped them only 2 spots based on respect for Vrabel.
Yeah.
As opposed to what this team showed on the field. I already just hit those stats.
Sure.
Jacksonville dropped 2 spots as well. They lost to Houston, who I had down. I still have down further on the board. They kind of looked lost in the game. It's a division game, so it doesn't qualify to be a trap game because Houston was between Kansas City and Atlanta.
Okay.
So there's 2 good teams, and then they played Buffalo. But since it's a division game, I do not believe it qualifies as a trap game. And then at 20, I have Minnesota. I only dropped them down 1 spot, just based on what happened on the board here. After what I saw in the game, I wanted to drop them further, but they kind of lucked out because a lot of teams in here lost.
Yeah, they kept it close, but man, they're 0-3 now. It's not looking good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so at 16, I've got the Falcons. I dropped them down 5, and I think what we saw in that game is very clear that if you can slow down their running game,
Mm-hmm.
you can very easily expose that team. At 17, I've got Jacksonville. I dropped them 1. I didn't want to go crazy like we talked about because it was a divisional game, but still not good. They should have won it. 18, I've got Green Bay, and I'm trying to come around to some of what you've been saying with Jordan Love and things like that. And I wanted to show some respect because I feel like up until this week, I was down on them. And I don't know if I wouldn't say I'm like totally sold on Love just yet. I think he's getting better. And I think with, Aaron Jones, when he gets back into that offense in the way the defense has been playing, I see hope for Green Bay. But I do think that New Orleans game was a little bit dysfunctional still, and they've got some things they got to iron out. And then at 19, I've got New Orleans. I dropped them down 7, and we talked about it pretty well here. I just feel underwhelmed by what they're putting on the field offensively. And then 20, I dropped down Washington 6 spots. It's tough, man. I was so excited about Washington the first couple weeks, and then they got really just kind of embarrassed by Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I've now heard every week is that Sam Howell is holding onto the ball way too long, and that's causing him to take hits, causing him to take sacks, causing him to make mistakes. And that's a hard thing to change. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, that those quarterbacks that hold onto the ball too long, It's just a very difficult thing to correct. And so I don't know where they go from here, but hopefully they can sort it out. Back to you at 21, man.
All right, so at 21, I have Carolina. I dropped Carolina down one spot, and I really like what I see from Carolina. They lost; they had their backup quarterback, but I'm liking what I'm seeing in Carolina. Um, yeah, they have they're struggling a little bit in the rushing game, but I mean they're averaging 200 passing yards a game. Their points per game. They're minus 27 in points. They're allowing 27 points per game, but I kind of like what I see, and I see the pieces there. It's a shame that Houston, Houston I had so far behind them because I think Houston is actually better. I have 22 at Indianapolis. I moved them up five spots. Again, I like what I'm seeing out of Indianapolis. I like what I'm seeing out of Richardson and then Minshew. Like they're averaging, 210, 320 yards a game. They're outscoring. They're 2-1. They're outscoring their opponents just barely. They've scored 74, allowed 70. Um, but I like what I'm seeing in the pieces. Houston's at 23. One of the problems I see with Houston is their defense is for having such a defensive coach, their defense is piss poor right
Yeah,
now.
and it's going to take time. I think, Jimmy Ward was one of their big free agent signings, and I think he's been hurt. And just, it's tough, man, when you're starting at the bottom. You got to bring in some talent before you can turn it around.
Yeah, and they're allowing 34 or 24, sorry, 24 points a game, and they're only scoring 22. So they're right there, but there's a lot that has to happen to them. Both Indianapolis and Houston moved up five.
Okay.
I I dropped the Giants. I only dropped them one spot because I killed them a number of last week or after week one. I really killed them. I took the Giants from 13 to 11 in week one. So it's kind of, and they lost to San Francisco. They put up a fight, but could have done better. And same with Washington. I dropped them one spot, but I also, it's one spot this week. I really I had them in like the same. They're still higher than I had them rated at the beginning of the season. Like I think Washington is better than I thought they were coming in, but there's a lot to be desired with. Like I said, Sam Howell. Sam Howell had probably his worst. He had his worst game so far in his career. The Bills defense actually showed up in the game. What happened though? The issue that popped up is turnovers. Sam Howell threw four interceptions.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You cannot throw four interceptions in a game and expect to win that game. But on the flip side, with Sam Howell is averaging 223 yards per game, and the problem is he's not throwing the touchdown passes. I don't know if he's holding on to the ball too long because he's still 66% completion percentage. So I don't know if that the issue is really he's holding on to the ball too long. Before this past week, maybe this past week he was holding on to the ball too long, but prior to that he only had thrown one interception. But I moved Washington down one spot to 25.
I got you, man. Okay, so at 21, I have got the Buccaneers. And yeah, I mean, hey, Philly came to play. The weather was maybe a factor. I thought Tampa Bay's defense still looked pretty good despite the scoreboard. It just, didn't go their way, man. 22 with Tennessee. I dropped them down one spot. I was tempted to go lower, but there were a lot of teams on my board in this range that lost, and so they
Mhm.
kind of got to stay near where they were at. Same with the Giants at 23. I dropped them down one. I do, and so James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Saquon was out for that game last week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I mean, they're moving the ball even without Saquon. I think that maybe they're starting to show some signs of life, but it's been a rough start for them. And then at 24, I've got the Raiders. I dropped them down one spot. Definitely some questionable coaching towards the end, but it may not have mattered. I don't know. It's hard to tell with some of that kind of stuff. Either way, like you said, they got a Josh McDaniels problem. And then at 25, I've got the Colts. I moved them up 5 spots. I like that they caught Baltimore off guard, man. You got to capitalize on those opportunities when you get them. They're sitting pretty at 2-1. I don't think anybody was really expecting that with, what was supposed to be a rookie quarterback, Minshew helping them. But, hopefully Richardson's back this week. We can see some more of that, electric running the ball and all the stuff he's been doing. So back to you at 26, man.
So I'm going to save a comment. After you talk about year 26, I'm going to save a comment for the Raiders and year 26. 26, I have the Rams, dropped them down a spot. They lost. It was a close game. I think the closeness of the game was more problems in Cincinnati than the Rams being good. I think they're better than I thought they would be coming into the season, but they're still not a good team. 27, I have Tampa Bay. I dropped them down one spot. They lost to a top 3 team I had on my board. It's crazy to think that Tampa Bay is 2-1, yet I have them at 27, and that's really how low I was on the game on them coming in this year, and how slow I am to react to it. And that's the same with Green Bay. Green Bay's 2-1.
Yes.
Yeah. Green Bay's 2-1, and I have them at 28. But I'm very slow to move them because both Tampa Bay and Green Bay, I think they have. I'm not certain about their quarterback. 29, Arizona. I moved them up 3 spots. They moved from last on my board. Good for them. They actually that's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 3 spots because I had Chicago. That's 4 spots. Wow, my math fucking sucks this week. So it's 4 spots up.
No, you moved them up 3 spots.
No, 31 to okay.
Yeah, you got that one right. You're good.
I got that one. And then at 30.
Yeah, and don't you do a lot of math for work here, man? No, I'm just messing with you.
I do.
When you're not working, it's like, what do they say? Plumbers got like the leakiest pipes or whatever. It's just how it goes, man.
Yeah. At 30, I have the Jets. I dropped the Jets down 12 spots. This is 2 weeks in a row where I dropped a team 12 plus spots.
Yeah, you're not holding back.
But a thing with the Jets, total points per game their point differential looks okay, respectable for a 1-2 team. But they've only scored 14 points a game. They've allowed 20. Where the issue is they are averaging 133 passing yards per game.
It's garbage.
They have 2 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Yep.
They have 1 rushing touchdown. It's defense and special teams touchdowns they're getting. Total offense, their defense is allowing, and you said their defense is good. Their defense is allowing 360 yards per game.
Dude,
they're only getting 247.
Dude, when your offense is dog shit and you're out there the whole time, you're gonna get burned out at some point. So, I think that talent-wise, they have one of the more talented defenses. It's just that there's no complementary football for them.
Right. So their time of possession average is comparatively 24 to 35 minutes. So I hear you on that. Their turnover ratio is -1. I'm sorry. Can that be true? Hold on. I have to look something up because I have the stats. But so let me see. 4 interceptions, 2 6. Okay. Then that number, I have a bad number on here. So.
Okay.
But they've turned the ball over. They've turned the ball over 2 times a game, approximately. It's just they have an issue, and it's Zach Wilson, and nobody's admitting it.
Oh, I
But
know.
the
They
issue,
they should be they should be calling Washington, asking about Brissett. They should be
hmm
calling Detroit, asking about Bridgewater. They should be
hmm
going after anybody and everybody to get a game manager on that offense and let them get back into the playoff picture. Because all you got to do is be smart with the football, hand it off a lot, and let your defense play strong, and you can win some games.
exactly, and you have to have a quarterback that doesn't lose the fucking game for you.
Yeah, yeah. All right, are you good on your side?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, 26, I've got the Vikings. I dropped them down one. You know, I've been down on them, but even now I'm pretty surprised I got them at 26. And I think you mentioned something about you had a comment on my
Yes.
26.
So with Minnesota and the Chargers, I talked about the Chargers and going for it on fourth
Yeah,
and
their
one
own.
from
Yeah.
24. So with 6 minutes left in the game, down by, and I want to get the exact. I got distracted for a minute. I wanted to get the exact situation. They punted the ball with like 6 minutes left in the game. They were down by. There it is. So I'm sorry, 7 minutes left in the game. No timeouts left. They. Wait, no, that's not right. Where is it? Is that right? That's third. I must be confusing it with something else because,
Oh, you're mixing things up.
yeah.
Okay.
So I must be confusing it with something else. There's
Ain't no
another game.
thing but a chicken wing.
Oh well. So never mind. Either way, both Minnesota, the Chargers and the Raiders have coaching issues and coaching
Yeah.
decision issues.
Yes, they do. Okay, so then at 27, James, I've got the Rams. I dropped them down one. They slipped a little bit on offense this past week. But I think part of that, like we talked about earlier, Cincinnati played a very good defensive game. 28, I've got the Broncos. I dropped them down four. Definitely, definitely could have went more. But I don't know. It's just hard. They're bad in every way they can be bad. You know, offensively,
hmm
defensively, and special teams. They're bad all around, and you know whatever. Houston, I've got them at 29. I moved them up one spot. I thought it was a huge win on the road. You know, but I don't want to go too crazy and like catapult them up my board. They still got a lot of work to do. And
Yeah.
then at 30, I've got Arizona. You know, this is one where I moved them up two spots, and I'm genuinely wondering if I need to like regrade their team because they had two games where they were very close, and they just sort of made like some kind of slip ups at the end and lost, and now they have an upset win. Um, you know, let's just see how week four goes. But man, it just I didn't think they had a chance in heck for any of these games, and they've been playing really good football, man. So I don't know. I'm just rethinking it a little bit. Back to you for the dumpster fire, James.
All right. So I found the game and I confused the Chargers games with the Rams game. So the
Okay.
Rams, what I thought was Minnesota. It was the Rams. The Rams punted the ball with 6 minutes left in the game. I believe I don't believe they had any timeouts left, and they were down 10,
Okay.
and they punted the ball, and they were at fourth and
Yeah.
five. Like that's kind of like the reason that they had to do the onside kick at the end because once they got the ball back and scored, but that's the game that I was remembering with 6 minutes. Anyways,
Sure.
my dumpster fire. So I have Denver at 31. It's only a one spot drop for them, but so Denver's allowing 40 points per game. If you even take it, they've allowed 122 points. prior to that they were doing decent. Prior to this game this weekend, um, they were doing decent in points against. I mean, they're only scoring 23 points a game. They're averaging total offense. They're averaging 358 yards, and they're giving up 470.
Okay.
And they're -4 on turnovers. And then I have Chicago at 32. I dropped them one spot. Chicago is even worse yardage wise. It's 410 to 277. They have 277 yards, 410 they're allowing. They're also -4 on turnovers, but it's 25.7 points per game versus allowing 35.3. The reason I think, even though Denver just put up or just gave up 70 points, Chicago's been consistently losing by.
Yeah, it wasn't one big whopper. It's
right.
been a lot of just big ones.
Right. They lost. You can throw it out. They lost by 18 to Green Bay. They lost by 10 to Tampa Bay. So, I mean, you can throw Green Bay out a little bit because, well, no, not really, because it's still an ass whooping, and that one should be closer, or should be further out if it wasn't a division game. And then Tampa Bay by 10, and then they lost by 31. They just, we'll talk about it when we get to game picks, but I'm not excited about that game this week.
No. All right, yeah. So my dumpster fire, James, I've got the Bears at 31. I dropped them down 2 spots. I think it's one of these situations where Eberflus has got to get that defense under control, because that's supposedly his quote-unquote expertise, man, and it is nasty. The offense obviously having problems too, but it's like, man, when you're a defensive-minded coach and, you're going into your second year or whatever, you should be making some progress, and they're clearly not. And then at 32, I've got Carolina. I didn't see the game, but I heard Andy Dalton played pretty well considering. It's tough. It's a team going through a rebuild, and they're 0-3. Yeah, I probably could have had Chicago down here all the way at the bottom. I need to see Carolina get a win before I can bump them up. But I do like what you did, because I think you can make a good case for Denver and Chicago being at the bottom. Just not the way it worked out on my board, at least not yet.
Yeah.
All right, man. That's the game. That's the power rankings. Let's move over. Let's talk about the game picks. And I'll let you kind of take the lead here, man, if you want to, kind of guide us through the picks here.
All right. So I am doing absolutely pathetic this season. I at least hit 50%. Last week, you again won 12-9. It gives me 24 correct on the season, where you have 29. You're at 60%. We did the first game last week because we were thinking we were doing Friday, not Wednesday, but we have the Lions at the Packers. This game concerns me for the Lions simply because of the fact that it's the Packers, and they typically don't do. In general, they don't do well. Is that correct? Huh.
What's that?
I just noticed that on my notes that, so I would say they generally lose in Green Bay and generally win at home. But my note is against the Packers, they are 10-2 against the spread.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And the Lions have covered 10 straight division games. Wow. That's interesting.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I modeled this. I have a close game, but I have Detroit winning.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I've got Detroit winning this one, but I've got it as a close one. and it's still hard for me to hone in on kind of like what my spread is for some of these games. But I've got this one within 3 right now, and knowing that I still got to tweak some stuff in the model, the heat map between these two teams, it's like mostly Detroit on offense
Hmm.
and mostly Green Bay on defense. And so, we'll see how that shakes out in real life. But it is in Lambeau, and so it's nothing going to be given for Detroit. If they want to win this division, this is going to be a huge game for them. So, and Green Bay knows that, and I know Jordan Love's trying to make his mark and start his kind of era. So, yeah, but yeah, I'm going Detroit.
All right. Next up, we have the first London game of the season, Atlanta at Jacksonville. Which we'll talk about this game a little bit. Did you hear what Disney Plus is doing for the kids?
Oh, yeah, dude, I love it, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, so they're having the game broadcast on Disney Plus, which by the way, it's on ESPN Plus only. It's not on ESPN. But the game on Disney Plus, the version is going to be they're going to do the live action as Toy Story characters,
Yeah.
which I think is phenomenal that they can do that, and they're doing it as the plays are happening. So it's just crazy. Like, and I'm
They
really interested in seeing how they're able to do this.
So they did a big city greens one for hockey last year. And I'll tell you what, man, my kids went crazy for it, dude. And I mean, I thought it looked pretty awesome, And so I
Mhm.
think if you're a kid, this is just a great way for the league to start kind of getting their hooks in you
Mhm.
early and building that fan base for the future. And so I'm excited to see how it looks.
Yeah, I told the wife that on Sunday we have to wake up. Like we generally don't wake up for the London games because they're on at fucking 6:30 here, but we have to wake up for it and wake the kids up to watch
Yeah, cartoons.
toys cartoons because I kid you not, like the girls are obsessed with Bluey.
Oh yeah.
Like to the point where we'll be watching something on the TV and they'll be in like because their playroom's right there, and they'll stand there looking at the TV. More Bluey, more
Yeah.
Bluey, more Bluey. So that's that's just how it is in my house. That's how it is with young girls.
Yeah,
But
that's
so
kids, man. My kids
Falcons
are older and they still love Bluey, dude.
Falcons at the at I'm sorry, Falcons because it's a home game for Jacksonville, which is just a weird thing because Jacksonville is playing back to back in Europe.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress. So as this one was a weird one in my model, and like I think it ends up being my model has 21-17 Atlanta. Atlanta is they've covered the last 6 meetings with the Jaguars, and Jaguars are favored by 3, so that could still be a Jaguars win. And they are 7-1 against the spread all time against the Jaguars, but they're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games as an underdog. But but underdogs in London games last season were 3-0 against the spread.
Okay.
I might change this. I'm gonna put that caveat, but I'm gonna stick with my model for now because I think just overall Atlanta is a better team than Jacksonville, and I think the stats kind of line up for Jacksonville's problem on defense. If I remember correctly, their problem on defense isn't passing, it's rushing. They're
Sure.
allowing never mind. It's kind of a mix. So I had their I had them confused with someone probably. But anyways, I'm gonna go with Atlanta. Running game's the key for Atlanta. That was obvious this past
Yeah.
week.
I got you. Yeah. So in this one, I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm going with Jacksonville. Um, I honestly just didn't even factor in that it's a London game, but that it takes my model down a little bit on Jacksonville's side, but not enough to flip it. And when I look at the heat map, I think the majority is in Jacksonville's favor on the heat map, but the part that concerns me is that Atlanta is better in the trenches both ways. And that can always be a factor in a game, just like that on its own. And so, I think it could be a close one, but I'm going to give the edge to Jacksonville for now.
Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. This is another one that I might change because I have to sit down and really analyze this matchup, and I haven't had that time because we're on Wednesday, and my model doesn't really. I can't really update my model till after the Monday night games. So I had Tuesday to update my model, and it comes out with a 37-31 victory for Buffalo, but I have to look at my updates and see what I did with Miami after the 70. If I because I don't remember, I just don't remember what I did. I have to just go in and look at it.
Sure.
It's Tua is 10-5-1. It's kind of like mixed. He's 10-5-1 against the spread as an underdog, but he's 500 straight up as an underdog. He's decent against the spread in division games. Decent at 4-1-1 on the road in division games, 8-3-1. Dolphins are 6-1 against the spread in division games under McDaniel. Josh Allen is 44-30-5 against the spread when it's between -3 and +3. It's just I don't know what I want to do with this game. I just have to sit down and really analyze it, which I haven't had time to do.
Sure. So you said you're
So
on Buffalo for
I'm
now?
on Buffalo for now.
Okay. So I'm going the other way. I'm going Miami, and this is my first override of the year. So my model has Buffalo winning. It just, to me, it just doesn't pass the sniff test or the smell test or whatever you want to call it. It just seems like Buffalo's been inconsistent the first couple weeks. I know they had a solid game this past week, but the two before were a little dicey. And Miami has just been like full throttle the whole way through. And so I want to ride that freaking train, and I'm going to stick with Miami for my pick here, even though my model is going Buffalo.
All right. Next up, we have Minnesota at Carolina. Um, my model has Minnesota winning 27-26, and I did have
Oh,
time to go.
shit. Mine is so close, too. Go ahead, man.
I did have time to go into this a little bit, and I'm actually going to switch it to Carolina. The last three games as an underdog at home, Carolina has won.
Okay.
And I'm reading my model doesn't have it has what's this I'm forgetting quarterback names. I'm getting old. It doesn't
You got Bryce
have
Young you're
Bryce.
talking?
No, it doesn't have Bryce Young. It has the who played this past week.
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
It has Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, I believe it has Andy Dalton in there and not Bryce Young, and I'm reading that Bryce Young is going to be back for this game, which I think would be a detriment to Minnesota because Minnesota, the way Minnesota wins the game is getting at the quarterback, and if Andy Dalton's easier to sack than Bryce Young's a little bit more nimble and a little younger, so I'm going to actually switch to Carolina in that game.
Okay, I'm updating it right now. So I'm on the Vikings here, and when you said the score, I was just, my model has it within a point, and it's, I don't know, man. I've got the Vikings, and I've got it like dangerously close.
Hmm.
The heat map is like trading every other way all the way down. And so I don't really think either team has a clear edge. And I think that if Minnesota can't get their heads out of their asses, you might as well stick a fork in them because 0-4, it's, you're not coming back from that, I don't think. So, but I think they'll get this one. And so I'm giving it to Minnesota here.
Yeah. And now next up, we have the game to end the debate on who's going to end up 0-19. The Denver Broncos I'm sorry, 0-17. The Denver Broncos at the Chicago Bears. Both teams are 0-3 against the spread this season. So therefore, somebody's going to get their first win against the spread this season because somebody has to win against the spread. This is it's like, and there's not a single stat that I could come up with good stat for this game. The Broncos are 1-8 against the spread as a favorite. So, first of all, the Broncos were favored in 9 games between now and the start of last season. They were favored in 9 games. How the
Danger
fuck is
Russ,
that
man.
possible?
Danger Russ.
How the
People
fuck is
were
it
like,
in
oh,
9
Russell
games
Wilson in
possible?
Denver. And then halfway into the year, they were like, oh my God, what were we thinking?
So one of the sites I use is ESPN, and they have their FBI, their Football Power Index favorite,
Yeah.
and according to ESPN, their FPI favorite is the Broncos by 1, with a 53% chance to win outright.
Okay.
My model, and I don't, I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but I have to go into this game because it doesn't make sense to me. My model has Chicago winning 31-24. How the fuck do these two teams score that many points? I'm on Chicago, but I have to go into this one. I could see this one moving to Denver, but
Yeah.
I'm on Chicago for now.
I got you. Yeah, and so I'm going Denver. I'm going the other way. Both these teams are just piss poor this year, unfortunately. It's hard to watch. And when I look at the heat map, it does go back and forth a little bit. It does give Chicago the edge. I know I talked about this earlier. It gives Chicago, I talked about this earlier with a different matchup, but it gives the edge to Chicago in the trenches, which I think helps Chicago in this game. But I do like, and the heat map likes the Denver coaching staff a lot more. Sean Payton and company, maybe too much, unfortunately, after what we saw last week. But either way, it just barely gives the edge to Denver, and so I'm going with the Broncos in this game.
All right. Then we have probably one of the best games of the week. The Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. And I say one of the best games because my model does not have this as one of the best games of the week.
Okay.
My model has, and this is such a fucked up score in my model. It has Cleveland winning 21-12. So according to my model, Baltimore kicks 4 field goals, and Cleveland scores 3 touchdowns. It doesn't, the score doesn't make sense, but it makes sense with the eyeball test on Cleveland being a better team than Baltimore. Yeah. So I'm on Cleveland. I think Cleveland is the better team, but I don't agree with the score in my model.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going Cleveland here, and talking about the trenches again. One of the interesting things is that I have both of these teams very highly rated in the trenches both ways, but Cleveland better both ways. And man, I know, like, what was it last week? Ronnie Stanley was out. I didn't check to see if he's back for Baltimore, but they would bring him down a little bit in my ratings. Either way, though, I think the Cleveland defense is just dominating this year. And even without Chubb, I think the offense is figuring things out with Watson. They're maybe starting to get into a little bit of a groove there. Um, and I just don't trust Baltimore. And so I'm going Cleveland here.
Next up, we have Pittsburgh at Houston. Houston is 0-9-1 in their last 10 home games. I think this could be a upset, and Houston could win this game with if they do the same things they did last week against Jacksonville. Kenny Pickett has been prone to making errors this year. You can see the improvements in his game, and he's in his game a little bit, but he's prone to make errors, and he needs to develop more. That's why Houston's primed to upset Pittsburgh. And Houston's, I mean, it's about due time for Houston to win a home game.
Okay.
But my model has this game way too far apart for me to pick the upset. It has Pittsburgh winning by 2 touchdowns.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh, but I'm just saying this one is prime for Houston to win.
Yeah, I mean, hey, now that Houston got the win last week, maybe some of that momentum carries over and it's in Houston, so maybe that helps them. I could see some of that giving them a boost for sure. But I'm with you. My model has it a little too wide in Pittsburgh's favor. I got to go with the Steelers here. The heat map is mostly green for Pittsburgh. It does have some favor for Houston at the running back position and also on the offensive line. But I think that offensive line is negated by a pretty strong Pittsburgh defensive front seven. And so I'm taking the Steelers here, man.
All right. Next up, we have the Rams at the Colts. So I don't know where. I think where this game hinges on is if Richardson's playing or not.
Okay.
Currently, I have Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback in my model, but I also have Gardner Minshew kind of as an average quarterback. I know you have a higher thoughts on Gardner Minshew than I do.
I like him personally. I don't know that I have his rating that much higher because of it, but yeah.
Yeah. So the Colts, it's a 1-point spread currently. The Colts are 1-6 against the spread as a favorite since the start of last season. The Rams are 4-1 against the spread on short rest. And ironically, the line moved from opening as the Rams as -1 to the Colts -1 on this game. My model has it as a 12-point victory by the Rams, but also that's a factor of who's playing quarterback, and it might change on my model if it's Richardson. I haven't had the time to do the what if game yet on it if it's Richardson playing versus Minshew.
Sure.
But I'm gonna go with the Rams. I don't think Richardson will push the line or push my model close enough to me or let Indianapolis overtake the Rams in the game.
I gotcha. Yeah, and so I'm going with the Rams here. This is one where my model actually has it fairly even, but the green is going to be on the offensive side for the Rams, which is kind of led by, the veteran quarterback in Stafford and, some of the creativity and whatnot we see out of Sean McVay with that offense. And so I'm going to go with the Rams because I think they're going to find a way to score points. And, Indy, even if Richardson's back, it's just, I know he's looked good when he's played. It's just hard to trust because it's such a small sample size. We need to see him do it a little bit more often. And so I'm going with the Rams here.
All right. Then we have the Bucks at the Saints. The Saints are favored by 3. My model has the Bucks winning 14-13 in this game.
Okay.
But I'm actually going to flip it to the Saints in this game, and this is more of a heart pick because I feel like the Saints are a better team than the Bucks. Like the Saints in the last 7 meetings between the Bucks and the Saints have covered seven. I'm sorry, in the last 8, they've covered seven. They've covered 7. Bucks are 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 road games. The Saints are 0-4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games as a favorite. So it's kind of like which stat.
And it's a
Am
Jameis
I
Winston
there?
revenge game. Maybe.
Fuck. I am not gonna flip that. Thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna stay with Tampa Bay.
All right. Yeah, let
I'm
me
gonna
let
stay
me
with
put you back because I just
I'm gonna stay with
or
Tampa Bay because that's right.
Winston might
Jameis
be playing.
Winston is playing. If Carr is playing, I might consider flipping it,
Sure.
but I'm gonna go to Winston. Or not go. I'm gonna go to Tampa Bay because of Winston.
I got you. Yeah, and so my model has it very tight, but in the favor of New Orleans. And this is another one of these games where I just feel compelled to override it. And so I'm taking the Bucks. I like what they're doing on defense. I know last week they did 0 on offense, but we saw the first 2 weeks Baker can get that offense humming. And I'm not sure that the Saints are going to be able to have that same kind of impression like the Eagles had. And so,
Mhm.
and I don't know, man. Something just with the Saints. I'm starting to be a downer on them. I'm starting to be a downer, and so I'm going Bucks here, man.
Mhm. All right. Next up, we have the Commanders at the Eagles. I was surprised at how close this game was in my model. The spread on this game is 8, and Washington is 3-6-2 against the spread when they're at least 7-point underdogs. Ironically, the 3 covers that they have against the spread as a 7 or more point underdog are outright wins.
Okay.
And my model has Philadelphia winning only by 6, which I thought was odd.
That's still pretty
Look,
close to 8, though, if that's the line.
yeah, there's nothing good. Like I can't find a reason to pick Washington here. Um, and this, like I'm being honest with you, at the beginning of the season, I had Washington beating Arizona first game of the season, beating the Rams in Week 15, losing every other game.
Okay.
So they're already ahead of what I thought was going to happen. But I can't pick Washington in this game. It's Philadelphia is just too good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Philadelphia might be having their struggles, but it's a division game, and I think they'll be more focused for it.
Yeah, I don't want to overthink it. I almost said Washington. I've got Philly is the clearly superior team. Um, even if they're still working things out on offense, it looks like they've gotten that defense into high gear. And so that's going to be real tough for Sam Howell and company. And so I'm going Philly all the way this one, man.
Next up, we have Cincinnati Bengals at Tennessee.
I don't
This is
like
one,
that game.
huh?
I don't like this game. I don't know. I don't know how to pick this one, but yeah, go ahead, man.
So, yeah, exactly. It's a 2-point spread. And actually, my model fits the narrative for Tennessee than as opposed to Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's covered the last, and it has to do with proximity. Cincinnati's covered the last 5 meetings against Tennessee, but that goes back to 2011. So it's kind of like spread over time. The Titans are, since 2021, the Titans are 8-1 against the spread in October.
Okay.
They are 10-5 outright and against the spread as home underdogs under Vrabel. Lines Cincinnati -2. My model has it, and I think my model having it this close is more of a statement on where Cincinnati is right now versus where Tennessee is. My model has Cincinnati winning 20-19.
Okay. You got some tight ones this week too, man.
And I'm going to stick with Cincinnati.
Gotcha. Yeah, so this one it's just deceiving for me. This is one of these ones in my model that it's like all green almost for Cincinnati. And yet I have no faith in it because of the way they've started the year. And Tennessee hasn't exactly started the year great either. It's just I just don't have a lot of conviction for either team, which makes it hard to pick. And so I'm going to stick with the model. I'm going to stick with the heat map being green for Cincinnati, and I'm going to pick them. But I could see it going either way, to be honest.
Next up, we have the Raiders at the Chargers, and I think what this hinges on. No, actually, it doesn't because I have. Hold on, let me. Who do I have? And I just want to see
Yes,
what I have
Eckler ever
for.
coming back?
Well, is Eckler coming back? But I don't have Eckler in there. Um, so it depends on who starts for Vegas on how close this game is.
Oh yeah,
If
because Jimmy G. Yeah,
if Jimmy G starts, it's close. If Aiden O'Connell starts, it's closer. If Hoyer starts, it's
it's a gimme game for the
it's a gimme
Chargers.
game for the Chargers. And I have Eckler out. Eckler's back in practice this week. He has a chance to play. I have no faith in that. Ultimately, my model has the Chargers winning 26-24, and I can't find a reason. I can't find hope. This is like I can't find hope for the Chargers because their coach doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I can't find hope for the Raiders because their coach doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. So
Yeah,
I mean, who do I fucking pick? I just go straight up with the model.
yeah. That's why we do
And
models.
the Chargers win despite their coach.
Uh, yeah. So my model, it has the Chargers by a good margin. Um, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence in it, but I feel more confident picking the Chargers over the Raiders than I did the Bengals over the Titans. And so, um, yeah, man, especially if they get Eckler back, I think that would be huge for them. You know, I know the Raiders have Josh Jacobs, but they haven't figured out how to get him going this year. And so, yeah, I like the Chargers in this one, even though both teams have some dysfunction.
Yeah. And next game, I'm not going to spend that much time talking about because it's going to be a bloodbath. New England at Dallas. So Dallas is a 7-point favorite.
Okay.
The Cowboys are 8-1 against the spread after a loss since 2021, including 6 straight covers. I don't have. I do have it as a cover too. I have Dallas winning by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. I don't think it's that close. I'm with Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I'll tell you what, man, my heat map is entirely green for Dallas, except for coaching, which is green for New England, with exception to defensive coordinator. I give that to Dan Quinn. But um, I, man, I just I think because New England is strong defensively and Dallas has been streaky offensively, I think they can slow them down a little bit, but I don't think that offensively New England can do enough to hang in the game, and eventually Dallas will take over and walk away with it. So I'm going with the Cowboys here.
All right. I forgive me. I said that one was a bloodbath. My eyes misaligned. This one is the bloodbath. Arizona at San Francisco.
Oh yeah, this one on paper, on paper.
I have San Francisco winning by 30 in my model.
Nice.
Um, interestingly, The Jets are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games after a loss.
The Jets, you mean?
The Jets are 0-5 against the spread in their last Jets. Fuck.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
The 49ers are 6. I jumped ahead because wasn't going to talk much about this game.
Oh.
6-0-1. The 49ers are 6-0-1 against the spread in division games since the start of last season. Point blank, once Brock Purdy loses a regular season game, I might pick against San Francisco.
Okay.
I'm on the 49ers.
I like the way you put that. I think the 49ers just saw the Cowboys lose to the Cardinals, and they're thinking, let's not do that. And they shouldn't, because on paper, they're green everywhere except for the defensive back four. And that's another one where I'm kind of wondering how the hell is Arizona rated better than them? But either way, I think San Francisco takes this one easy.
All right. Now we get to the game I started talking about, Kansas City at the Jets. This is where the Jets are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games after a loss. Also, Kansas City's a 9.5-point favorite.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah. So, as home underdogs of over a touchdown, the Jets are 2-2 outright, which I thought was weird. Patrick Mahomes is 13-0 outright as a road favorite of at least 7 points. I'm on Kansas City. My model has Kansas City winning by 10.
Yeah.
Which covers the spread. But I'm on Kansas City.
I got you, man. Yeah, I mean, as much as I like the Jets defense, they just have nothing going on offensively. And unless they can get like a couple pick sixes or, kick return, punt return, touchdown, something like that, I just don't see how they stay in this game. And so, it's not even I can't even like conjure it up. I just got to go with the Chiefs here.
Then we have, and the last one we're going to do this week, because we'll hit the Thursday night game next week.
Sure.
Is Seattle at the Giants. I don't know how the fuck this is a pick'em. The spread on this game is 0.
Okay.
I don't know how the fuck that happened. I don't know how to take this stat with that line, with the line of it being a pick'em or even, because the Giants are 6-1 against the spread after a loss under Brian Daboll. My model has Seattle winning by a field goal and it going to the over. Yeah, and it goes over, which is 47.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay with Seattle. I think Seattle's better. I think it might depend. I think it might depend on Saquon's health in the game if he's playing, because I'm trying to
shift things a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm gonna stick with Seattle for now. I'll remodel it if Saquon is playing.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, this is another one this week that I'm overriding, and it just doesn't pass the smell test for me. But my model has the Giants by 2.5, and I just don't believe that can happen when I see how these teams have played so far this year. I've got to go with the Seahawks. I think that, they've got 2 great running backs. They've got 2 great wide receivers and maybe even a third in the making. And the defense, I think, for the Seahawks has been a little bit suspect this year. But I think offensively they can hang with a lot of teams. And I'm just not seeing enough in terms of signs of life at all out of the Giants. I know last week they started maybe getting it going against the 49ers, but until I see more, I can't trust it. So I got to go Seahawks here, man.
Exactly.
All righty. Well, those are the game picks. Are you good to move on, my friend?
I am.
Okay, well, let's do our question of the week here. And this is going to be sort of like a two-part question of the week, if you will. And so I was just kind of looking at the games from this last week and the records, and we've got three teams right now that are undefeated. We've got Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Miami. And then on the flip side, we've got four teams that are totally defeated. We've got Denver, Minnesota, Chicago, and Carolina. I want to know from you if you think any of the undefeated teams, the 3 and 0 teams, will any of those teams slide and fall out of the playoffs? And then out of the four defeated teams, will any of them get their asses in gear and sneak their way into the playoffs? And while you're thinking about it, I'll give you my thoughts, which I'm not putting a ton into this tonight. It just, I think for the 3 and 0 teams, I think a lot would have to go wrong for any one of them to not make the playoffs. I think there would have to be either a major injury like a quarterback or a handful of key player injuries. Otherwise, I see those three teams getting there one way or another. They're all fighters, they're all highly talented, they all have a lot of depth and good coaching, and I'm just not seeing how they could have that big of a fall off. But out of the 0 and 3 teams, it's tough to see a path for any of them, in my opinion, to get to the playoffs. If I had to pick one just to do it, it might be Minnesota only for the fact that we saw them pull it off last year. And so maybe they could get some of that magic back. It's largely the same team, but even then, I think it's a stretch. And so, plus the NFC is a little bit weaker. So if you're going to make a run, that's the place to do it. It just, I'm not seeing it either way. What are your thoughts, man?
All right. So for the undefeated teams that could slide and miss the playoffs, I think of any of them, the team that would have, if it were to happen, the team that it could happen to is Miami. If you remember last year, Miami started out the season on a tear, and then
Oh,
they
yeah.
trailed off and missed the playoffs last year. They have a lot of hard games coming up, starting this week at Buffalo. In week 7, they play at Philadelphia. In week 9, they play at Kansas City. In week 16, they play Dallas at home. In week 17, they play Baltimore, and they finish the season at Buffalo. Potentially right there, that could be 6 losses.
Yeah, that's a pretty brutal schedule, man. Yeah.
Um, a team sneaks up and could a team sneak up and surprise them, give them 7 losses? I have 10-7 being the minimum record you need to make the playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, so they'd have them right there.
Yeah. So right there, that's 10-7. They're already on the on the border. There's a team that could sneak up for them. For the 0-3 teams, first of all, Minnesota is out. There's no way in fuck it could happen. They still have to play Kansas City, San Francisco, at Atlanta, at Cincinnati, Detroit twice. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty bad
that's rough.
flip from what they did last year.
The team that I could theoretically see sneaking into the playoffs is, I don't know. Denver, no way. Denver has so many problems. Chicago, no way. They have so many problems. Like, I think I have to agree with you. Like, Carolina could, because they are in a weaker division. But in theory, Carolina could because they're in a weaker division. But when you look at their schedule, like they just play Seattle. Okay, so they play at Detroit, at Miami, Dallas,
Yeah, there's not a good path for any of them.
Atlanta, at Jacksonville. There's not a good path for the fuck just happened.
Uh-oh, you're
So,
having some
like,
power issues?
my monitor flickered on me for a minute.
Oh,
So it was like I think if anybody does it, it would be Minnesota because but
It's a
if
stretch,
anybody,
man.
it's a stretch. I think Carolina could have a chance because their division is kind of down, but Minnesota's the same way. Like Green Bay's supposed to be down. Yeah, the Lions are good, but Chicago sucks, and Minnesota still hasn't played Chicago yet.
Yeah.
They haven't played any division games. So like their first division, they play at Chicago in week 6, which I had Minnesota going. It ending up. Something's going on with my monitor connection, and it's bugging me. Minnesota ending up at 8-9, and I had them starting out 2-4.
Okay.
And that's the thing with Carolina. Where it's going to hinge on is the first win for either team could be this week.
Yeah. Will that be the spark to propel them, James? Maybe that should have been the question of the week. I don't know, but hey, we'll talk more about it next week, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that's question of the week. Much like Name That Stadium, we hope we get some takers. If we don't, we're not going to cry about it. The show must go on. And next week, you'll get our week 5 power rankings and game picks. And so, yeah, James, like always, man, having a good time doing it. And our views are falling off a cliff. But I guess, like we talked about, there's real football now. So who needs us? So, but as long as we're having fun, we'll keep it going, my man.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bud. Have a good night.
You too.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut, hut, hike.